Hi all, I have another amazing game of Mikhail Tal. This is a very special game in a very special tournament that I'm going to show you. To give you some background, this was the USSR Championship of 1957. The previous year, 1956, Mikhail Tal had become, he had come joint fifth, and in the 1957 tournament, in this tournament, he became the youngest player to win it at the age of 20. So this was a fantastic tournament for him, and apparently because he had not played in enough international chess tournaments to qualify for the title of Grandmaster, FIDE decided at the 1957 Congress to waive the normal restrictions and award him the title because of his achievement in winning this Soviet championship. At the time, the Soviet Union was dominant in the world of chess, and Tal had beaten basically several of the world's top players to win this tournament. So this is the amazing context of this game, and this is one of the truly amazing games from this tournament. Tal, playing white, played c4. He could play e4 and d4 and c4. He could play any type of position. Knight f6, we have knight c3, and we go into with Tal playing the white side of a Simish King's Indian defense, so f3. The usual plan with this is bishop e3, queen d2, sometimes casting queenside and playing bishop h6 to get rid of this bishop and trying for an attack later. We have e5 from black. White's not immediately keen just to play d5. This might give black possibilities of counterplay with c6 maybe, and trying to use the c5 square. The tension is maintained in the center with knight ge2. Now here, usually players with white play bishop e3. Tal played bishop g5, which is another viable option, and seems in some ways quite annoying actually, this pin for black. We have black playing c6, Tolush playing c6, queen d2. Now black castles, and now here Tal does play d5 in this particular position. If black's not careful, white will take on c6 and take on d6. So black tries to close things up with c5. Now here you might think h4 is natural, but maybe there's concern black plays h5. So actually g4 was played first, and with this white can look forward to things like h4, knight g3 and h5 without too much hassle, and black playing h5 in any sort of advantageous way. It's trying to be ruled out. We have a6 with black trying to generate some queenside counterplay. Knight g3. Note the king is still in the center, not committing yet. Rook e8. This means that bishop h6 can be answered with bishop h8 now without losing the exchange. We have h4. Now with the king still in the center, you might think this is risky, but look how close the position is. Black plays queen a5, bishop h6, and in fact here black is not too scared about losing his dark squared bishop. He doesn't play bishop h8 here, and if he does, with the knight on g3, there's possibilities, dynamic possibilities anyway, based on the g file. So black plays knight f8, and we see h5. So this is very, very aggressive looking stuff, but kind of justified because black cannot break easily anywhere in the center or on the queen side at the moment to try and punish this flank attack. The usual recipe is trying to counterattack in the center or on the other side of the board. Black unfortunately is waiting a little bit in this quite closed position. So we see now bishop d3. This is another side of Mikhail Tal in this game, a very closed attacking position, and he's brewing up his resources behind the pawns, basically building up. If you know, most of the pieces are behind the pawns here. We see now black playing the aggressive b5, trying to generate some queenside counterplay. White wants to minimize, of course, black's piece play, taking here for c4 later, and black trying to drum up things would be a big distraction to any kingside attack. So in fact, in this position, white, Mikhail Tal, tries to accelerate things. He castles queenside, just making the c4 pawn a pawn sack now. He just retreats his bishop to b1. So it's a pawn sack here on c4. And you might think, isn't this kind of dangerous if black is going to use the b file? Is this b file quite dangerous in this position? Well, there are other things going on now here. White could be preparing, for example, taking hg and queen h2 to try and get on that h file quite quickly. Now black does actually retract the bishop to h8 in this position, trying to delay things maybe for white with those kind of intentions. Rook dg1 though points straight at black's king and does kind of imply a move like knight f5 could actually be dangerous for black. We see rook b8, so both sides are kind of pointing at each other's kings. Knight f5, it's not exactly immediately threatening anything that concrete. Knight f5, it's impressive and black dare not take it. Black played 6, knight on 6 to d7. If black does take it, then that's just asking for trouble here in this position. This would just be horrible for black. So it has to be left there, tolerated. We have now bishop g5. So a very interesting move, and it does support things like knight e7 check, amusingly with king g7 h6, for example, mating, just to show that. Yeah, this would be a very, very embarrassing checkmate scenario. So what black does is actually make way, give the king a square on h8. So knight e7 can be answered with king h8 here, if nothing else. Also, it's possible maybe a5. Black might have an idea of sacking an exchange, but there might even be stronger in this position as well. If a5, something like hg is actually maybe even stronger. If white wants to avoid any exchange sack, just this slaughtering on the h file is also really dangerous for black. This kind of variation, where this knight is now heading for h5 to deliver a checkmate, as an example, this is a funny example, knight h5 checkmate. So yeah, even the exchange sack could be something for black. But just to show you, there's other possibilities, not just knight e7. So we see this bishop g7 now offering that dark square bishop. Tal does take it here, plays check. He might have considered also opening up the h file. That is dangerous here. Black is in a dangerous position, but here is the real fascinating point from an attacking player's perspective. And what does an engine think about this position? There's a fascinating answer, a golden nugget of truth about the position. I would say that if you're playing a computer, how would you want to play this? The thing is, Tal's move at one level, and this can't be denied, at one level it looks a little bit controversial. He played f4, and I say that because it kind of gives up the e5 square. The computer's approach has the f4 idea. I'll just show you. Bishop c2, it tries to first pin the knight on d7. So if we move like this, we're pinning that knight, then we can play like this, and then f4, and it's pretty crushing stuff if we rip open this f file as well with this very nasty pin. The thing is about this position, black's pieces are heavily congested, and this is quite a nasty pin in conjunction with f4. This kind of scenario would be pretty devastating if black has to give up a rook here to fend off the mating threats. So that would be one way of really playing optimally here. So this might, this might have been with best play from the opponent. This might actually have represented an opportunity by Tal playing f4 here. The opponent responded taking, so he's getting that lovely looking e5 square. Queen d8, which is actually an ingenious move by Tolush, to his great credit. He's offering, it seems, the d6 pawn. If black had played knight e5, then it's end of game with queen f6. Black would have to give up a piece, and knight e6, and that's not exactly what black wants. But this is an ingenious move. Here we have hg, knight takes, and you might think, well, what about this pawn on d6? The thing is, if white ever takes, like here for example, there's knight ge5, and they kind of trapped the queen, and then there's rook b6 after. So this would force some sort of horrible concession from white, distraction, knight a4, and things would just get messy. This just gets messy. There's no point in taking d6. The last thing Tal needs to do is give black too much counterplay here. He's got a great position. Now we see in this position after queen h2, black playing knight e5. Okay, so this position is really quite fascinating, because black is potentially good on the dark squares, but it's his king safety and the knight squares which are a major concern, particularly h7. In fact, this next move, bishop f4, threatens things like queen takes h7. Now here is where black may have gone, from a theoretical point of view, quite wrong. At the moment, the knight on e5 is a great blockader, especially for this bishop. You see this bishop? It's just hemmed in, and black potentially one day might even use the b file. It seems black could try a very dynamic move. He didn't in this position. He played knight f8. Possibly queen f6 would give black much better chances here for survival. After check here, this position, for example, most of black's problems would be resolved. Black would be okay here, which does kind of show, the timing of f4 is potentially controversial if black can maintain a strong dark square blockade on e5. But with this move that black did play, with the move that he played after bishop f4, black played knight f8. Things start to get a bit messy, to say the least. We have now queen a6. So queen f6 has been taken away from black. That's just vanished now as a possibility, this dynamic possibility. And in fact, black is now faced with bishop g5 and bishop f6, just mating him potentially on g7. So we have the knight, this knight, coming to seemingly rescue the situation, shielding the queen away from f6. So bishop g5, there might be f6 possible. The thing is here, we'll take a look at this position. Queen b6, looking at b2, there's rook g2, and if here bishop takes, this position is also interesting, by the way. So yeah, so this knight eg6, bishop g5. Already, I mean, even in this position, it's interesting to consider liberating the bishop with e5. This is also a potentially dangerous possibility. But we see bishop g5 for the moment. f6, and it's here. What do you think Tal plays? If I give you 5 seconds, I might have hinted at some point, if you're still awake. So white play here, if I give you 5 seconds to pause the video. Maybe try and work it out, the continuations as well. But you see that the blockade is not literal now, it's just virtual, as if black is stopping, discouraging e5. But no, white definitely wants to play that now, opening up the attacking bishop. So basically, this is really bad news, just fundamentally, that the dark square blockade in e5 hasn't been maintained. We have quite a vicious bishop on b1, essentially pointing at black's king. The variations now are going to be very difficult for black. Black played rook takes e5. It just looks extremely unpleasant. Now, you know, this taking, it looks extremely unpleasant. Indeed, just to mate potentially the black king. There are variations, which just surely just ends in potential checkmate here. For example, like this, just off the top of my head, as a basic example. So it's really dangerous, this position. So yeah, rook takes e5. We have bishop takes g6. And now black tries to defend things with rook b7. If knight takes g6, queen takes g6, this is pretty much devastation. This kind of position is pretty devastating. Okay, so we have rook b7 instead, trying to defend laterally like that. Knight e4, now threatening the vicious knight takes f6. So black has to do something about that. F takes g5. If he had played rook takes e4 instead, then bishop takes. This position here is crushing after rook f1. This is absolutely crushing, with threats including rook takes and then bishop takes. So okay, so we'll go back. So this is the position. F takes g5 is played, but now rook f1 here. This is also dangerous in this position. Black took on e4. If he takes on g6, then knight f6 check is just winning. For example, king h8, we can play queen takes and we're mating like that. Okay, so yeah, so after rook f1, pardon me, so black played rook takes e4, and we have bishop takes e4. Black trying to defend with rook g7 now, but now the pressure is mounted with rook f6. There might have been a forcing sequence as well. The position is really good for white in this position, so there might have been even better here in rook takes and bishop takes. This is really dangerous, believe it or not, because it looks as though black might have counterplay in this line. There's a killer move in this position. This is just a side variation which computers find. White to play and win. Can you guess what white plays here if I give you 5 seconds? It's actually an incredible sideline, an incredible move in this position, which is very, very attacking. And I doubt many of you will guess this move, even if you pause the video for some time. It's a very, very difficult to guess move here, white to play. Give yourself 1,000 points if you get this after pausing the video, etc. King d2, it supports rook e1, it stops the queen e3, so it's multi-purpose. For example, this after rook e1 is crushing. Here black is falling to bits, just getting mated. Bishop g6 is the sweetest way to finish black off. So if takes, we mate on e8. If a5 say, we can even play queen mate, just mating pretty shortly. Okay, so that is a crushing variation, which shows the position is absolutely winning by this point after rook f6 was played, because fundamentally, yeah, black's blockade is a thing of the past. White's got all these attacking roads into black's king. So, but this is still fantastically good for white, just doubling rooks on the f file. Also, in this position, bishop takes h7 was really strong, like this. This is a forced mate as well, actually. It's forcing mate, basically, this line. So an absolutely crushing position. Okay, but we have bishop takes g4, rook hf1, knight d7. Black's position is on its last legs. Rook takes d6. So, yeah, what is black doing now? We see queen coming to e7, but now another route is taken to black's king. If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video, what would you play here? Really strong. Okay, rook takes a6. Yes, another route. The back row here via a8. Black plays king h8. If he plays queen takes e4, then this is just murderous checkmate there. So we have king h8, but now we have, in fact, what does white play here, you think? Not the obvious check, actually. Tal played bishop takes h7. He's trying to make this check a checkmate, basically, by having the rook there. That would be an awkward configuration. You know, for example, here we're just mating like this rather nicely from white's perspective. But anyway, so no, bishop takes h7. Black plays knight b8. Now this discovered check. We have king g8, and now bishop e6 check. Bishop takes, rook takes e6, and here black is the exchange down and is facing terrible threats. He resigned in this position. It is fairly hopeless here. Just as an example, just doubling again on the f-file seems dangerous if white's given the opportunity. For example, here and here for rook f8. Otherwise, you know, the back row is pretty lethal, of course. So where does the queen actually go? It's pretty miserable, this position. The game has a lot of ideas about how we play in closed positions and build up resources, but also that key strategic break. The engines play it in such a way that there's zero counterplay for black. There does exist some lines theoretically where black could have played dynamic to keep hold of the e5 blockade, and I do find that fascinating from the science, if there's such a thing as the science of attacking chess, using Tal's games as basis to explore that science. That f4 was the right break, but it could have had a little bit more preparation in theory, just to make sure, you know, you want to win in such a way that there's no questions asked, there's no counterplay from the opponent. But a fantastic game showing great attacking chess from a closed position, how lines are opened up, opposite side castling, avoiding giving the opponent counterplay. You know, he could have taken on c4, he could have taken on b5. He tried to ignore black's queenside operations as much as possible, basically, and focus on his own attack. So he crashed through in the end emphatically, especially after that liberating e5 was made possible for this really vicious bishop on b1 to join the party there. I hope you got something from this game. I think it's very instructive to study. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube, and likes appreciated. Thanks very much.